everything starts from the top down, and that's no secret. But a lot of times as restaurant owners and operators, we forget that we are on top. The owner, the management, sometimes they're losing morale, they're losing, they're having frowns on their face, they're burnt out, and that translates to your staff subconsciously, and that's what makes them go out there and look for a new path. Someone's a little bit happier, brighter, easier, then you lose them. There's something you excel at, market that, brand it, be a part of that, immerse yourself. And I feel that will stick out in the crowd.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Oysterlink's podcast. My guest today is someone with over 20 years of experience in the hospitality industry, and his name is Salar. So could you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, I'm the founder of Savory Hospitality Restaurant Consulting, based in California, Los Angeles area. I specialize in generating more profits and growth for restaurants at any hospitality outlet, and also opening up new restaurants. I'm also known as the LA restaurant rescue guy out here in Los Angeles. So been around for a while, and definitely know hospitality.
Then you're the perfect partner for today, because there are many topics that I want to cover and go over with you. One of them being how to keep the establishment profitable. But first things first, how did you get involved in the hospitality industry?
I got involved at a young age, being a first entrance of a career or job that I had around the age of 17. I was back in the kitchen, washing dishes, bussing tables for a small restaurant, and fell in love. When I went through college, I always was in the hospitality business and just grew my knowledge and skills.
So how would you describe your career journey? What was the main factor that took you from dishwashing and bussing tables to being an owner of a successful business that helps other establishments now?
It was definitely a long journey, tons of speed bumps, detours. I think it's pretty common in hospitality from start to where you are now. I started off with a passion of food and beverage, and I still have that passion of food and beverage. And then the hospitality aspect was kind of natural to me in generating guest experiences, building teams. For someone that has a short attention span, is a perfect career. And I feel that really paid off for me to now, where, there's many facets that you can work on and be a part of in hospitality.
So is that the right approach to attract the younger generations to join the hospitality workforce? Because I've been hearing from a lot of employers and a lot of establishments, we're struggling to hire new people. Gen Z doesn't want to work in the restaurant. So is this what you just said? It's great for people with short attention span, which is almost all the entire population on planet Earth nowadays. And also, laying out the different career paths. Is that the way, or do you have a different approach to that?
I think one thing with hospitality in general, it attracts different personalities. Understanding the personalities that belong in certain positions, being a host, being in the kitchen, more introverted people like to be in the kitchen, but they're also creative. And you have to find that in them when you interview them. And I think that's where it kind of takes you to the next level of really good job recruiting, is seeing the potential in the person in front of you on the resume, but just their attitude, their body language, their vibe. And then really being, this person will do really well as a server, but maybe they don't have that experience, and invest in the training to give them that experience.
Okay.
So I think it's a multifaceted kind of idea of who you get to hire, different positions, and where they get put them.
So would you say that there are certain skills that are more suitable for the front of house, and then certain skills that potentially new hiring managers should look for when they're hiring for back of house?
I definitely do feel there's certain skills that are more highlighted in front of the house versus back of the house. Personality is definitely one. Communication with the guest. How do they communicate? How do they react to oddball questions? With back of the house is also how quick they learn, but also how well they work under pressure. Ton of pressure in the kitchens. Every kitchen, being a sandwich shop to a full-blown restaurant, at some point will feel a lot of stress. And I feel like level heads, but hard workers really pay off in that position.
Okay. So from a perspective of someone who has hired multiple people, what would be your go-to for creating resumes, regardless of front of house or back of house? Like, what would you say is the key? Because people are speaking about ATS, about keywords, about experiences, about this and that. And then a bonus question, what if they have like a gap in their career for whatever reason, health, private, whatever it might be? How would you approach that?
Sure. As someone that's probably reviewed, I don't know, maybe thousands of resumes, what pops out, how you format, I mean, obviously depends on the position. Can I use an example? So I grew up in Los Angeles, started my career out around the country, not so much in the LA area. And then I came back to Los Angeles to hire for a big team for a new opening a long time ago. And the interesting thing is we're getting resumes with headshots. Like back then, and this was probably 18 years ago. That was unheard of. Get headshots with resumes, but now you see that a lot. And the reason you were seeing that in Los Angeles was all the waiters we were hiring were inspiring actors and actresses. So it made sense that they put a headshot. Not saying that was necessary, but it kind of put in our brain the resume, like subconscious, like, oh, that's that person. We should talk to them. That being said, also clarity on your resume. How you write. You don't need to fill it up. Having more doesn't mean better. Less is better, I believe. You don't have to have 4 pages. You need to be straight to the punchline. I think front of the house, back of the house. Back of the house, we like to see more skill sets. Are you able to use a combi oven? Are you proficient on the grill line? Are you proficient at plating, expoing? These things are nice to know prior to kind of the interview portion. It might push you ahead. But front of the house, waiters and servers or managers, we want to see some stability. Where was that stability? And if there wasn't a stability, like a gap or 8 months, 6 months transition to a new job, put a quick tidbit, moved away for opportunity, or no longer operating in restaurant, or something that we can understand the story behind you prior to making a decision. Is that the person we're going to call? I think that's a good resume overall.
Amazing. That answered a lot of questions that our audience keeps on sending us on our social media. So I think that this is going to be like the highlight of, answering to their prayers. Okay. So tell me now, when hiring a manager, what is your favorite interview question?
My favorite interview question is definitely, tell me a time where everything went wrong and how did you fix it? No restaurant's perfect, even top-rated restaurants. There's a night that the POS stops working. 2 people call out sick. A customer finds something wrong with their food. Working under pressure, what is your process of dealing with pressure? I think that's my favorite question, because you can get long drawn out answers, which aren't incorrect, but sometimes you have the short, sweet answers that you're like, okay, they've definitely been through it and gone over that speed bump.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. So now going back to your career, how did it actually feel, and what was the go-to moment for a lot of people who are in this industry, from being an employee to being a business owner? So what was the biggest transition for you, and what would be your biggest advice for people who are, let's say, executive chefs, but now want to open up their own place?
Understand the speed bumps that you get encounter, right? My business did well when I transitioned, but it was a slow transition. I did it part-time, independently, consulting. And then I kind of built my clientele. I learned a lot about business, and generally speaking, how to establish a business, how to maintain it, insurance, advertising. These are things that are not 100% natural to most people in hospitality. Go outside your comfort box and learn things that, even accounting, right, and taxes and those type of things. You're being a business owner is definitely different than being a chef, manager, or partner in operations. Being a sole proprietor, you got to be really knowledgeable in a lot of fields and go out there and try to learn those things.
So in case that you really, let's say, suck at accounting and you're super scared of that, like how to overcome that fear? Because people oftentimes get stuck in their, area of comfort. This is where I am the best. I'm just going to stay here. And then they keep on missing opportunities. So what would be your trick, let's say, for something that you're not good at?
I mean, I think nowadays we're lucky with so much information out there on the internet. Obviously, Google is your friend, but it's also your enemy because there's a lot of bad articles and advice out there. But do your research. There's almost nothing you can't figure out within a day. If not, find out the person that's an expert, right? Me as a consultant, I get seasoned restaurant owners that reach out to me and say, hey, what are you doing now to train your staff? So don't be afraid to ask for help, right? No one expects you to be your own accountant, HR, or anything else. Just be knowledgeable in what you don't know so you know how to gain that knowledge from someone else.
Okay, great. So delegate. That's where I suck at. But okay, it's a learning curve for all of us.
It's always learning.
Exactly. So as a restaurant consultant, what would be, let's say, if you can generalize or kind of summarize the top 5 issues that establishments are facing now?
Top 5 issues establishments are facing is definitely labor. Labor is obviously going up here in the U.S. and it's a juggling act. Cost of goods, managing your inventory, managing your menu, just advertising, being on top of your market. Say you're a pizza place, a sushi restaurant. How do you brand and market has also been a struggle point. And obviously employee retention. I've had a lot of, new projects where retention is an issue, and how we deal with that is all different facets. It's not just one answer to that question. I think those are the top actually issues we're seeing nowadays.
Okay, so I know that there is no one size fits all, and you mentioned it's not one, it's layered, but okay, how to overcome the labor shortage is one. And then what are some best practices to manage the staff retention?
Managing labor shortages is being ahead, right? It's at some point you're going to overhire and say to yourself, well, I'm running high on labor. But we know, especially opening up new restaurants or coming into a busy season, you're going to lose people, right? Some people move, some people find other careers, some people just stick around for 5-6 months, generally speaking. Doing a bit of overhiring doesn't hurt. Financially, it can be tough with the scheduling and making everyone happy, but realizing don't go overboard, have enough headspace so you don't have to hurt so bad. With employee retention, so it's building a food and beverage culture that it's appealing to your staff. It's no longer just giving them a few dollars, right? We all know we pay this amount, we make sure they get tipped, we try to take care of that. It's the food and beverage culture you put into your restaurant. Is it hostile? Is it way too overdrive for them? Is it, try to make level-headed managers? Yeah, everything starts from the top down, and that's no secret. But a lot of times as restaurant owners and operators, we forget that we are on top. The owner, the management, sometimes they're losing morale, they're losing, they're having frowns on their face, they're burnt out, and that translates to your staff subconsciously. And that's what makes them go out there and look for a new path. Someone's a little bit happier, brighter, easier. Then you lose them. But
okay, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's one very important thing that we're trying to cover and discover and, share the bits and pieces. Okay, so what was your favorite position before you became before you became a business owner? And why?
That's a tough question. What was my favorite position for a business owner in hospitality? I love being in front of the house. I have my younger days. I was a lot in back of the house in the kitchen. went into the front because I like the personalities of new people, new faces, customer experience. Front of house management has always been my passion. Bar management, mixology, those things are probably something that I really excel at because it has creativity plus customer service. I feel like if I had to choose a perfect job, I would just be a beverage director for an insane large bar that saw hundreds of people a day. I mean, thousands of people a day.
Okay, I like that. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so you yourself have a pretty big team. How does it actually feel to be managing your team on one side and then balancing it with the demands from clients?
It's definitely taken a while to balance that, but it's been natural to me at this point because I'm very, transparent with my team, about our wins, about our speed bumps, about our challenges ahead. It's taken a while to get the people I work with, on the same level of communication. And that's the key, is communicating and not offending, constructive criticism. And I always make them understand that I don't know every answer. That's why you're here, to help me out.
Okay, great. So as much as you can disclose without naming anyone, what was the craziest request that you have ever had from someone that you consulted with?
we do have NDAs, so I'll tell you a story about where there was a request that I did not feel we could be partners and be clients and work with them. We had a restaurant group that was decently established. At some point, I feel like they approached us to help them with their new branding and service standards. But once we dug in, to the interview process with their team, but prior to being hired, we never worked for them. We found out that their team was on board. They were very negative from up and down. Only one person high up was, well, we need a change. Everyone else was content. And when you have leadership that's just content on day to day, this is working, why we're changing it, you really can't. It's a team effort. Me as a consultant, I'm there to make a big impact, no matter what area you need help with. But if I don't have 50% of the team on board, don't need everyone, at least 50%. It's not justified to start that project.
Okay, gotcha. What would you say? You mentioned branding of the restaurants. What are some of the key elements that new restaurants that are just entering the market should kind of consider for themselves?
So branding is one of those things where, based on each style of restaurant, what you're offering, being quick service, fine dine, casual, but having to define product, or what it is, and understanding what are the two elements you do better than anyone else. For example, you see a lot of Italian concepts out there, right? They're probably the most common restaurant you see nowadays in America, Italian. Well, what do you do better than the other Italian restaurant 2 doors down, 1 block down? Define that. Understand, don't say I do everything better. There's no one that does everything better. There's something you excel at, market that, brand it, be a part of that, immerse yourself. And I feel that will stick out in the crowd.
Wow, that's super useful advice. So thank you for sharing that. So now, speaking of the things you wish you knew before you joined the hospitality world, what were some or one thing that you wish you knew before you started out?
I mean, it was an interesting journey. Everyone has a story. My story is long. I can go through an hour and a half of talking about it. Yeah. I think I knew it's difficult. There's no written path. I have a degree not in hospitality, in biology, and so it was, even if you had a degree in hospitality management, I feel like there's so many unknowns. You just don't know. But you also have to understand that it's always evolving. It's never the same. What I've learned 10 years ago, yes, helps me for today, but it's also what I've learned in the last 5 years that matters as much as what I learned 10 years ago. So knowing that you're consistently always learning, I think that's one thing you should know from the beginning is don't stop learning. Don't think you're good at anything. What do you know about hospitality, wine culture, cocktails, cuisine is always going to evolve. And if you don't, you're going to be stale.
You're going to be out of business.
That too.
Probably. Let's now speak a little bit about, again, the job seekers. There seems to be a disconnect between, restaurants, establishments, and job seekers. Because on one hand, I have the establishments complaining there is not enough people. And on the other hand, the job seekers are saying, oh, there's simply not enough, places that are hiring. So what would be some tips for actually finding better opportunities for yourself? Maybe starting with a mentor and then how to actually communicate that you want to progress in your career.
I think it would be clear on your future what you want out of your job. Being in restaurants or whatever else, be clear. Do you want to be a waiter, a professional waiter? That's perfectly fine. I know many people are professional waiters and do well. Professional line cooks. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think employers really respect when someone comes and says, in the next 5 years, I want to work in your kitchen and become chef de cuisine or become a sous or become your executive chef. That's why I inspire. I think understand what you're trying to inspire to be, even at an older age, right? That's perfectly fine when we get people, midlife kind of tell us, hey, I enjoy working the line. I love it. Or I enjoy waiting tables. I'm a professional. I think when the two understand each other of what your goals are, that's where you find more fulfillment in your employer, because they're not holding you to a different standards. They understand what you want, and you understand what you want out of them.
And as an employer or as an owner, and you've been through all of it, and you've consulted the most successful businesses, and you've saved some that were not so successful, but that managed to overcome their biggest challenges. What are some, again, best practices, not universal tips for success, both on the hiring side, on the cost efficiency, and branding?
So that can be a long answer, but the most successful operators understand their brand. Have a defined brand. Don't just say we're out here serving steaks. No. Build a hospitality culture. That culture in itself, on a healthy scale, healthy living, mentally, physically, you appreciate your employees, you appreciate your guests. I think building that culture is number one, and understanding cost and finance and, what are things really going to cost you, right? What's your break even per day? Understanding that, and also understanding sales and marketing. Not that you have to be a pro at sales and marketing, but you have to understand what is your drivers? What is something that's going to set you apart from your competition? And then use your resources, marketing agencies, or maybe it's an in-house marketing person, social media. Obviously, we're not getting into social media, but that's a big part of everyone's marketing nowadays. If you're not on social media, you're probably struggling and you're not trying to hire people on this platform. So I'd say everyone is.
Yeah, amazing. So what makes your consultancy stand out compared to other restaurant consultants?
Well, I think it speaks from my heart. Every client I have, obviously I'm a fan, but I also have an attachment, not just for success, but it's also for the well-being of their business. I want them to have an easier day. I want them to have less headaches. And I think as a consultant, I see the numbers. I understand. A lot of people understand the business that have been doing it for a while, like myself. Is building the psychology is where I think we stand out. Is I understand the psychology behind the human aspect, the hospitality aspect, what brings people in, and what employees are seeking out of the restaurant and as an owner, out of you. think that's where I stand out.
Okay, that sounds lovely. It sounds like they have a friend in you and a companion on like long term, not just someone who is gonna, take the money and say bye bye.
No, never. I mean, there are clients that no longer need my services, but I check in, and definitely during the pandemic, when no one was hiring consultants, I was still checking in, trying to help as much as I can.
Do you think that the numbers of, our lovely industry have come back to what they used to be pre-pandemic? And how do you observe the future, the growth? Like, is it going to be like, skyrocketing, or is it going to be like basically the same like in this previous year?
Coming out of the pandemic in the US, we definitely saw a bit of a bump in build outs and concepts. I don't think where it's going to slow down. Speed up, I have my doubts in the next year or two, but I don't think it's going to slow down. People still need the human aspect of going out and enjoying themselves. Now, the establishments that are being built out have to be more cautious about their spend, about marketing, and about their average cost per guest, right? So the more restaurants, the more hospitality that's out there, the more competition. So yeah, I think people are going to get more creative, but also I think on a positive side is people are doing less Uber Eats. Generally speaking, there's no more, for dinner, lunch. They want to go outside and sit down, especially with the hefty, with the inflation of food costs. You're kind of saying like, oh, should we get Uber Eats for $60, or should we go down the street to our restaurant and be served for $65? And I think that is the positive takeaway, right? So I don't see quite a slowdown. I think we're plateauing on growth for now. We'll see in the next year or two where that heads.
Amazing. So I have that infamous question that a lot of people have been asking me, and that's, what's your take on AI in the restaurant business? Like, yeah, it's a never-ending hot topic. Oh, am I gonna have a robot server? And now Elon Musk just released his humanoid robot.
I've worked for some automation. We've consulted for some automation companies, and it's AI mixed with robotics. I think robotics are okay. I think we need them because the cost of doing business is going up, and profits are coming down. At some point, we need to stabilize that. And obviously, labor being number one issues for most restaurateurs. Robotics, yes. Front of the house, I'm a little bit wary about full dining, but I don't mind on quick service, fast casual, having that AI component. We have AI already for hosts. When you call, AI machines help you out. Yeah, they can all do a little bit better job. We also have, tablets on people's tables at some restaurants. I do worry that at some point the human aspect and hospitality aspect is going to be more watered down because of AI. But it's also promising when you see Tesla robotics, making these machines where maybe they can work the fryer, because, that is a labor intensive, tough job to do, working in the kitchen, repetitive movement. I think if we eliminate more repetitive movements in that way, yes, let's do that and bring more personality to front of the house. I think that's okay. And that is the future. Robotics and AI I think will do a lot for hospitality.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing that future. Salar, thank you very much. It was a pleasure getting to know you and receiving all of these tips and advice. Do you have any parting message for hiring managers, owners, and then job seekers?
For owners and people hiring managers, I know every resume that comes across your desk, you take it with a grain of salt. Personality goes a long way. I think learn the psychology behind the people you're hiring, what drives them, and you make better decisions. For those that are applying to positions, be genuine. And even if they has a question that's not your strong suit, let them know. Be honest. The more honest you are, the more the employer can see that and appreciates it.
Thank you very much.